Welcome to CountryWatch Political Intelligence Briefing Quick Hits, a weekly look at hot stories across the world in brief. I'm Denise Youngblood Coleman, and I'm the Editor-in-Chief and Senior International Affairs Analyst at CountryWatch. This week in my political intelligence briefing, with just a few days to go until Election Day, the United States is the featured country. Voting is already underway and there's record early turnout. As of October 30th, more than 80 million ballots have already been cast, surpassing the previous early turnout record set in 2016. In fact, the United States Election Project is predicting record overall turnout of about 150 million by Election Day. Such an outcome would constitute the highest voter turnout in 100 years. I'm going to cover my forecast for the election, but before I do that, I want to give some attention to events unfolding in the world outside the United States. Among the international hot stories that I'm covering is the gruesome terror attack that took place this week in Nice, France. The attack was carried out by an Islamist terrorist using a knife to kill 3 people at the Notre Dame church in Nice. Among the victims was an elderly woman who was beheaded. French President Emmanuel Macron decried the terrorist attack and vowed to deploy thousands of soldiers as a protective measure. In happier news, Sudan became the 3rd Arab state after Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates to normalize relations with Israel. All 3 diplomatic breakthroughs were brokered by President Donald Trump's administration in the United States. Also on the agenda was international debt relief for Khartoum. Coronavirus, meanwhile, is dominating the international landscape. India hit the grim milestone of 8 million coronavirus cases, but the good news for India is that the death toll has been low relative to infections. Both France and Germany have issued new lockdowns due to the uptick in coronavirus in their countries. Italy has also adopted renewed lockdown protocols to the consternation of many small business owners. In Russia, where coronavirus is flaring dangerously and with hospitals at 90% capacity, the government announced a nationwide mask mandate, something that Russian President Vladimir Putin has resisted until this time. Even Canada, which has dealt with coronavirus comparatively better than many countries in the Western Hemisphere, was seeing an increase in the aftermath of Canadian Thanksgiving celebrations. The obvious lesson there being that large group gatherings do indeed spread COVID-19 infections. So let's circle back to the elections in the United States. In addition to the presidential contest, we are also looking at congressional and Senate elections. Republicans currently hold the Senate with 53 seats. Democrats hold 45 seats, as well as an additional 2 seats, thanks to 2 Democratic caucusing independents. To flip the Senate, Democrats need to flip 4 Republican seats outright or win the White House and flip 3 Republican seats because the vice president serves as president of the Senate. Because Senator Doug Jones of Alabama is probably going to lose his seat, Democrats will have to make up for that loss, basically compensate for it by flipping yet another seat. It's a steep hill, and Democrats will have to run the proverbial table. But that goal is in sight. Key targets include Arizona, where Mark Kelly will likely beat Martha McSally, Colorado, where John Hickenlooper will likely beat Cory Gardner. Also possible is Maine, where long-serving Senator Susan Collins is at risk of being beaten by Sarah Gideon. In Iowa, Joni Ernst looks vulnerable to Teresa Greenfield. In North Carolina, Cal Cunningham could well beat Tom Tillis. And with that, you're at 5 seats. That's not accounting for other unexpectedly close races like South Carolina, Georgia, Montana, even Texas and Alaska could be closer than anticipated. In regard to the House of Representatives, Republicans would have to hold all of their 198 seats and pick up 20 to gain control. Now, truthfully, because Democrats' gains in the 2018 midterms occurred in the suburbs, they potentially could be vulnerable to flipping back to the Republicans. But Republican brand damage over the last 4 years have shifted suburbanites, particularly suburban women, to being more hospitable to Democratic representation. The House of Representatives will be a Democratic hold. So now to the presidency. As I say every time at CountryWatch, we like to deal in data, we like to deal with facts. We do not ignore polls. And the polls show that Joe Biden has the polling advantage against Donald Trump. At the national level, Biden holds healthy leads against Trump in polls from modest 5-point leads to double-digit territory. At the electoral college level, and that's where the presidency is decided, Biden is competitive across the map, although there is some movement from last week. Trump is closing the gap in key states like Florida and Arizona, but Biden has small leads in these states. In fact, in North Carolina, he's eking out some degree of a lead in some polls. Meanwhile, Ohio and Iowa are now looking like they could go either way. So too for Texas and Georgia, which are officially battleground states at this point. Most importantly, Biden is solidifying his advantage in the Rust Belt battlegrounds of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. My forecast for the presidential contest is that Biden will win the popular vote. I'll go out on a limb and say it will be around 53 to 44%, 53% or to 54%, and Trump will be at 46 to 47%. In terms of the electoral map, which is how you actually win the United States presidency, I forecast at least 279 electoral votes for Biden. That 279 is conservative. Should Biden retain his small leads in Arizona, Florida, and North Carolina, he could well accrue as many as 334 electoral votes. And that's not accounting for what could happen in states like Georgia, Ohio, and Iowa. But I'm sticking with 279. I'm giving Trump a base of 182, but that includes an optimistic scenario in which he holds both Ohio and Texas. Ohio could be slipping away while Texas is a wild card, but Trump is doing well in terms of closing the gap in Arizona, Florida, and Georgia and Iowa and North Carolina, as I said before. So Trump could well win those states and add to his electoral vote count, but that would take him to 259 electoral votes, and that is not enough to win. So let's talk about why I think Biden has the advantage and is favored to win the presidency. The easy answer is polling. But to be clear, most Democrats view the polling numbers for Biden as too good to be true, likely due to the 2016 post-traumatic shock when they expected a decisive victory for the 2016 nominee, Hillary Clinton, only to be disappointed. Meanwhile, Republicans are undeterred by the polling numbers that show Trump to be in a challenging position, pointing to his surprising victory in 2016 as a sign of re-election victory to come in 2020. But there are some key dynamics pointing to a Biden advantage. One, Biden is neither Clinton nor Trump. His favorability numbers are better than both. Two, Trump is not an abstract notion. He is a known quantity with a record now and being judged on that very real record. Three, the Comey letter was the October surprise that hurt Clinton in 2016. There's a daily October surprise, from taxes disclosures to coronavirus, none of them benefit Trump in 2020. Clinton took the Rust Belt for granted. This is my point number 4. Did not mobilize turnout in Michigan and Wisconsin, and minimally mobilized in Pennsylvania. Trump, meanwhile, was a constant presence in these states. That was 2016. In 2020, despite the pandemic, Biden is fighting hard for these states. 5. In 2016, Clinton had to deal with a fractured base after a bruising primary contest with Bernie Sanders. Biden has the benefit of a wide and unified coalition from former Republicans to the left. 6. Although Clinton was ahead in 2016, she never crossed the 50% mark in most polls, national or state-based. Biden crosses 50 in most likely voter modeling in 2020. 7, it's almost impossible to be up by 10 or even 5 or 6 in the nationals and lose the electoral college, assuming that those people being polled convert to actual votes. Things get more dicey if the candidate is only up by 4, so that's something to watch as we approach election day. At the moment, though, Biden's healthy national lead augurs an electoral college advantage. 8, the race has been very stable for a year. In fact, a look through history shows that Biden is in a better position at this point in a presidential race than any challenger since 1936, when the first scientific polls were taken in a presidential race. 9, Biden has way more money to spend. That cash advantage means that he has more immediate money to spend on advertising. 10, there's a very small sliver of undecided vote share compared to 2016, so far less room for surprises. The undecideds in 2016 broke for Trump. Regardless of how they break in 2020, it is a smaller segment and so less likely to have an effect. 11, demography does not lie. If Biden is winning most demographic groups, from women to Latinos to African Americans to Asians, Jewish people, LGBTQ, millennials, and seniors, even if Trump hangs on to white, non-college age educated persons, Biden has the advantage. As I often say, demography is destiny in politics. And 12, coronavirus. I don't think I need to add more to that. Bottom line, Donald Trump absolutely can still win this race and be reelected, but Joe Biden is better positioned to pull off victory. A final note. For 20 years, I've written about the countries of the world and about people who risk their lives to cast a ballot and vote, regardless of your politics, irrespective of your political persuasion. Don't take your right to vote for granted. Be a participant in our democracy. Vote. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. And remember that we live in an interconnected world.